All right. Hello, everyone. We're going to give it another minute here and then we'll get started. Oh, I see some friendly faces in the crowd here.
Yeah, you can actually see them. That's impressive.
Oh, not faces, names, unfortunately.
Going, wow, Bree, that's impressive.
Haven't gotten quite that far with GoToWebinar.
Yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't. Yeah. Here, we're just going to turn your camera on for you. No, we're not there.
Oh, no. Oh, no. All right. I have noon on the clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next webinar in our series for Stewards of the Beautiful Land. My name is Bree Hull. I am the Northeast Iowa Field Coordinator with you today. And then with us, we also have another field coordinator, Brad Riphagen. Want to say hi?
Hello, everyone. Work in Southwest Iowa primarily. Welcome to the webinar.
And we're happy to welcome our guest from Good Neighbor, Iowa, Cameron Waymeyer.
Hello, everybody.
All right, so first things first, if I can get that window out of here. All right, so come on, there we go. So welcome. I want to say it's fantastic to have you all here. I know you probably found out about this webinar from one of the many avenues, but I do want to encourage you to also visit our landing page where you can learn more about upcoming webinars and the field days that coincide with our webinars. We have 4 different counties each year. We have Cerro Gordo, Alameda. Brad, which other 2 do we have?
Sorry.
You're okay.
Oh, come on, Brad. Cass County, and Marshall. Come on.
So if they're near any of those, we have monthly field days happening now until September. So we're going to go over that a little bit. I also want to encourage you all, if you did not know about our Facebook group, it's a little tough to find, but if you go on to Facebook and search for Trees Forever Stewards of the Beautiful Land, it's a great page where it's actually more of a community. I post about all of our field days and webinars, so you can find out there as well. It's also great when we're not in steward season for questions and just discussion, and it's a great community that we've got over there. So yep, that'll just be over there for you guys. So today, here's a bit of an agenda that we've got for coming up. So I'm going to go over a few of our upcoming webinars, the dates that we've got, some upcoming field days. I do want to say tonight our Cerro Gordo field day that was supposed to be in the Prairie has been canceled due to the weather. We did share about that through email if you registered and on the page, but in case you just were planning on going, that one has been canceled. You can look forward to meeting the roadside manager next month. And then we'll we'll get into our presentation. So upcoming webinars, we've got July 9th, which I believe is Iowa Glaciers, which will be really interesting. July 23rd, August 6th, August 20th, and September 3rd. And again, all of these dates are available on our landing page for stewards. Upcoming field days, super exciting. So the next one is going to be July 10th out in Cass County with prairie walk and butterfly tagging, and then at from 6 to 8. Then just a few weeks later, we have the Alameda Mushroom Hike and Native Plants ID at Yellow Forest State Preserve. I just had gone there. We went to the same Goat Prairie area last weekend, and it was absolutely gorgeous, and I can't wait to get back up there and see it again. So come and join us. It's a great hike, and if we did it during 100-degree weather, I'm sure we can do it next month. Then we've got on the 23rd, Cerro Gordo County, meet your local roadside manager, and Prairie Bingo, which is going to be a ton of fun. You'll get out there and be able to learn to identify a few species that are in bloom. And then we have on the 29th, Marshall County, Roadsides at Work at the Grimes Farm and Conservation Center. So again, just going to hit it home. Go to our landing page, treesforever.org/stewards. There's all of our field days, all of our webinars, and you can access our recorded webinars from past years. And for a little bit of maintenance for today, so ask questions in the question/chat box. Unfortunately, through GoToWebinar, we cannot see you, and the only way to actually communicate back and forth would be through that questions tab. So even if you have a comment, throw that in there. Take breaks as you need, stand up, stretch, move. This is a lunch and learn. So let's get going. Oh, and if you have any sound issues, let us know, and we will try to troubleshoot. Let's get into it. So pesticides and roadsides, what you need to know. So I'm going to hand it over to our guest, Cameron, and we're going to get started. Maybe if I stop sharing. Oh, here we go. Boop. All right. Perfect.
All right, how does that look? Well, once it comes up.
Looking good.
All right, awesome. Well, hello everyone. Thanks for being with us today. And thanks for learning about some pesticides with us. Make sure that I can, oh, I just got rid of it. Da, 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 da. You can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I can't see it anymore. So give me 1 second. There we go. Okay. So I'm here to present Healthy Lawns, Healthy People, which is out of Good Neighbor, Iowa, up in Cedar Falls. So my name is Cameron Waymeyer. I'm a Green Iowa AmeriCorps service member, currently serving with Good Neighbor, Iowa, like I said, up in Cedar Falls. Just a few other things about me. I am currently at the University of Northern Iowa, earning my master's degree in communication and media. I've got 1 more year to go with that. And then before that, I was at Central College in Pella, where I got my bachelor's in musical theater. So I very much like to be out in front of people talking, so I'm really happy to be here today. Before we get too far into the presentation, we're going to start with some what do you know pre-testing information, just as a fun way to jump into what we're going to talk about today. So true or false, if I spray a pesticide in my yard, it stays just in the location applied. You can hop in the questions chat if you want to answer that, but we can also just go ahead and reveal that is false. Unfortunately, pesticides will go wherever they want to go, from wind, from water, from pets, from people, so it does not stay where you spray it. True or false, all pesticide ingredients are required to be listed on the product. That is also false. You'd think it should be true, but unfortunately that is not the case. True or false, use of insecticides in your gardens removes unwanted pests but does not affect pollinators. That is also false. Wish that was the case, but unfortunately our pollinators are just as susceptible to insecticides as any other insects would be. And true or false, you can make natural herbicides at home that are better for the environment. Fortunately, that is true. And then just a couple more. The American Academy of Pediatrics released a study in 2012 that linked pesticide exposure in children to which of the following? Prenatal and childhood cancer, neurodevelopmental delays, behavioral disorders, or all of the above. As you may have guessed, that is all of the above. And then one more, which of the following health issues has been linked to long-term pesticide exposure in adults? Respiratory issues, hormone disruptions, cognitive decline, or all of the above? And again, that one is all of the above. So these pesticides have some pretty nasty side effects, and we're going to go ahead and jump right in now. So Good Neighbor Iowa is located at the Center for Energy and Environmental Education on UNI's campus. So we're down on the south side of campus, kind of by Gallagher Blue Dorn and the new engineering building. And we have a lot of different AmeriCorps programs that work out of that, but I am here representing Good Neighbor Iowa. So Good Neighbor Iowa is a statewide public health initiative started by UNI students in 2017, which is really cool. It was actually started by students, and now it's blossomed into something that is really getting engaged with statewide education and is really growing. We interact with schools, businesses, churches, childcare centers, and then also just everyday Iowans, and educate them about the dangers of urban pesticide usage and encourage them to go pesticide free. We also encourage them to pledge to be good neighbors, which means they promise to no longer use any sort of pesticide in their home or yard. I know sometimes we shy away from things that have the word pledge in them, but pledging to be a good neighbor doesn't mean pledging any money or any resources. All it means is that you agree to not use any pesticides in your house or your yard, and then we add you to our list of pledges and registrations for our metric purposes. Our overall goal at Good Neighbor Iowa is to reduce all of this unnecessary urban pesticide usage in order to transform lawn culture. We want to encourage an appreciation of diverse, healthy lawns, and by doing so, we can protect children's health, water quality, pets, pollinators, and support biodiversity. And also, when people pledge to be good neighbors and have a pesticide-free yard, you get this free, colorful lawn sign to stick in your yard, which is really awesome. And it alerts people that your yard is pesticide-free, and it starts some really nice conversations between neighbors about the Good Neighbor Iowa program and about how they can become involved with it. Now, it can be pretty difficult to encourage people to be pesticide free when we have this nationwide cultural stigma that you're not a good neighbor unless your lawn looks like a perfectly manicured golf course with no other colors but the color green. There's the stigma that you need to get out there and get your lawn under control because it doesn't look aesthetically pleasing to the eye if it has dandelions or clover or anything like that. So a large part of our goal is to reverse this stigma and encourage people to embrace biodiverse lawns that are free from pesticides, that are safe for children to play in, healthy for the environment, and healthy for our pollinators as well. That's what we consider to be a good neighbor. Since our inception in 2017, Good Neighbor Iowa's impact is growing rapidly. We have over 75 child care centers that have agreed to go pesticide free, over 1,800 residents, 230 parks, 40 schools, including the entire Iowa City School District, which is really awesome, and a ton of other pledges as well, which we have estimated has protected over 20,000 children from the effects of pesticides. One other thing I want to quickly mention is that Good Neighbor Iowa specifically focuses on residential lawns and institutions. We're not really involved in the agriculture side of things, so just wanted to put that out there. Here's a map of all of the Iowa counties that we currently have institutions or residents that have pledged to be good neighbors. Our goal right now is to get a pledge in every single county. So we're located in Cedar Falls. So as you can see, we've got most of eastern Iowa covered, but we're still looking for some pledges out in western Iowa. So if any of you are joining today from western Iowa, or you know anyone from western Iowa, go ahead and make them aware of the Good Neighbor Iowa program and maybe encourage them to pledge with us. Our goal, like I said, is to get a pledge in every single county. So we are well on our way to doing that. So that's what Good Neighbor Iowa is and what we do. So now let's dive into the why we do it. Get a quick drink here. So let's start with what pesticides actually are. There are some pretty well-known brands of pesticides out there that I'm sure we've all heard of, we've maybe seen in use or maybe have used in the past, like Ortho, Raid, Roundup, all sorts of different brands. And these are really common pesticide brands that lots of us have seen, but we still aren't sure what they are or what's in them. So a pesticide, by definition, is a substance that contains an active ingredient intended to eliminate a pest, whether that be a weed or an insect or a rodent. It's an umbrella term that is used for insecticides, herbicides, fungicides, and rodenticides. And many pesticides use one of the following active ingredients, which are 2,4-D, MCPP or MCPA, glyphosate or dicamba. Glyphosate has been in the news a lot recently, so I'm sure we've all heard of at least that one. As you may recall from our true and false game earlier, pesticide manufacturers are not required to list their ingredients on the bottle. They are only required to list their active ingredients. So that means a majority of ingredients in pesticides are unidentified and also untested. Then a majority of the time, these unidentified inactive ingredients can be more dangerous to human health than the active ingredients, particularly when it comes to the endocrine system, which is our hormone balancing system. So that is what a pesticide is. And now let's discuss why we are so concerned about the usage of pesticides in our lawns, in our homes, and on our farms. So a 2012 report from the American Academy of Pediatrics recommended that pesticide exposure in children should be limited as much as possible. They found that we are seeing exposures to pesticides from our food supply, from our water, from our drinking water, and this is leading to a lot of chronic health effects and acute health effects as well. Children are especially vulnerable due to their unique physiology and behaviors. Acute exposures can cause severe poisoning, while chronic exposure has been linked to serious outcomes such as pediatric cancers, neurodevelopmental issues, such as lower IQ or autism spectrum disorders, asthma, adverse birth outcomes like preterm birth or low birth weight. The reason that children are so uniquely vulnerable is for 4 reasons. One, physiologically, their bodily systems are still developing, so they don't have as developed systems to fight off these poisons. They're physically a lot smaller, and pesticide exposure has a greater impact per pound of body weight on them. Biologically, they take more breaths per minute, so they are ingesting more pesticides from the air per minute than adults do. And behaviorally, children are the ones that are outside playing in the turf grass more often. They're outside for recess, they're outside for sports. They'll come inside and they just go ahead and eat their food without washing their hands. And they have more frequent hand-to-mouth behavior than adults do. So they are just coming into contact with all of these pesticides much more frequently than adults are. Pesticides are not only dangerous to human health, they are also really dangerous to our pets' health. Exposure to lawn pesticides is linked to an increased risk of bladder cancer and canine malignant lymphoma in pets. And additionally, pets are constantly going inside and outside of our homes. And each time they do that, they are tracking these pesticides that are meant to stay outside, inside to our homes, and increasing our exposure to these chemicals. Now, when it comes to pollinators, pesticides are incredibly dangerous, as you can imagine. Spontaneous lawn flowers like dandelions and other things that we consider to be weeds are supplemental floral resources that support pollinators and enhance the value of urban green space. And when we spray pesticides, we take away these lawn flowers and we take away these pollinators' resources, which can disrupt the ecosystems. One of the newest and most dangerous insecticides to pollinators is called neonicotinoids, or neonics for short. They are currently the most popular insecticide in the United States and can be found on farms, lawns, and gardens alike. Neonics are extremely toxic to pollinators, where one treated seed can kill over 250,000 bees. Neonics are also very systemic insecticides, where they don't just sit on the outside of the plant and pollinators can come into contact with them. Neonics actually penetrate the entire plant. It travels to the leaves, the roots, the pollen, and the nectar as well. And neonics also last much longer than the average pesticides and rapidly dissolve in water, which doesn't mean they go away. It just means that they stay in the water for a very long time and they can travel very, very far by being in the water. So we're going to take a look at this study from the USGS that tracked the use of neonics. As you can see, in 2003, they were not very prevalent. But then as we go to 2004, the darker the area, the more it was used per square mile. The entire Midwest is covered. You can't even see Iowa. And unfortunately, 2014 was the last time this study was able to be done, because after that, people weren't even sure what they were spraying and what they were using anymore. So they weren't able to report what they were using for this study. Data from the CDC showed that half of Americans are exposed to these neonics, and a study from 2022 found that 95% of the 171 pregnant women that they studied were exposed to these neonics. So these chemicals are highly, highly prevalent. And the reason why this is such a cause for concern is that because exposure to neonics is linked to long-term health effects like ADHD, slower auditory reflexes, reduced motor skills, behavioral problems, and delayed sexual maturation in males. It also suggests that neonics impact our brain in the same way that nicotine does. And finally, this study found that residues from neonics are commonly found on our produce at the grocery store and in our drinking water. So these neonics are a grave cause for concern, as they are highly dangerous and highly prevalent in our air. Pesticides also have a really adverse effect on our water quality. I think that we've just kind of known that our water quality, especially in the Midwest, has been going downhill, and pesticides are a really large reason for that. So this study was done to show the impact of a pesticide ban and how that can improve our water quality. Because when you spray pesticides, like I said, they do not stay where they are meant to stay. Water washes them away into tributaries. They typically flow in the Midwest, at least, into the Missouri River, Mississippi River, and all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Where this has caused an ecological dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. So a lot of things that we are spraying are causing problems states and miles away from where we are spraying. So this study was done to show the impact that a pesticide ban can have, and they tested the waters before the ban and after the ban, and they showed that pesticide bans were highly, highly effective, showing in some areas a decrease of up to 92% depending on the stream and herbicide, which is a really incredible decrease. So these pesticide bans are definitely effective. So next, we're going to look at this study that looked at pesticides and linked them to different cancers in America. And this study found links between 69 pesticides and 6 different cancers, which are listed there below. And in order to put the harmful effects of pesticides into perspective, they compared these effects to something that is already highly regulated, known to be dangerous, known to cause cancer, which is smoking. And when they compared smoking to pesticides were associated with 154.1% more cases of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma than smoking was, 21% more cases of leukemia than smoking was, and 19.3% more cases of bladder cancer than smoking was. Additionally, the reason we are so concerned, particularly in Iowa, is because Iowa, being majority farm country, majority rural communities, Iowa has one of the highest exposure rates to pesticides and has the highest cancer rate in the country. In this study, they found that Iowa also had the highest amount of the 6 types of cancers that they studied. On this map, the darker the blue, the higher rates of cancer. And as you can see, Iowa is the darkest state, but also the entire Midwest is darker than anywhere else in the country, which is really telling when you remember that the Midwest is also the heartland for farming, and they use a ton of pesticides in agriculture in the Midwest as well. Up next, we have a report from an organization called Friends of the Earth, which is a nonprofit organization and one of the world's largest federation of grassroots environmentalist groups. They're active in 75 different countries where they work tirelessly to defend our environment. And they ran a study on the new Roundup formula. Roundup came out recently and said, okay, like we understand that glyphosate is dangerous, so we are going to have a new formula that doesn't have any Roundup in it. And Friends of the Earth said, okay, we're going to hold you to that, and we're going to test your new formulas to see if that is true. So what they found was that 7 of the new formulas still had glyphosate in them, and the 8 formulas that did not have glyphosate in them had much higher concentrations of the other chemicals, which turned out to be much more harmful than the glyphosate in the original recipe was in the first place. In some cases, they were up to 45 times more toxic, particularly diquat dibromide, which we're going to talk about in the next couple slides as well. This is 200 times more toxic than glyphosate. It's banned in the European Union. In fact, many of the pesticides that we use in America are banned in Europe and in other countries, but they are still legal here. And on this table, we see they compared the toxicity to glyphosate. So ammonium salt was twice as toxic. Flauzifop was 200 times more toxic. The salt was 20 times more toxic, and the diquat dibromide was 200 times more toxic. And they also wanted to see how long it stayed in your soil. So glyphosate takes about a week or two typically to get all the way out of your soil. Flauzifop takes about 8 days, which is about a week as well. The salt takes 30 days. Ammonium salt takes almost a year to get completely out of your soil. And diquat dibromide, which is the one we are most concerned about, takes 5,500 days. And when you do the math, that takes up to 15 years to get out of your soil. So it doesn't matter if you spray it once, it's still there up to 15 years later. So why do we bother with all of this research and all of these numbers? We at Good Neighbor Iowa are highly inspired by the precautionary principle that was used in the 1970s in Germany to pass a lot of environmental laws and regulations. And the principle is this: when an activity raises threats of harm to human health or the environment, precautionary measures should be taken even if some cause and effect relationships are not fully established scientifically. So essentially what that means is that we need to shift the burden of proof, and we should not have to prove that these things are dangerous in order for them to be removed. The companies should have to prove that they are safe for them to be allowed to sell them, and that also we believe that the absence of evidence of harm is not the same thing as the evidence of absence of harm. So just because there's not 100% undisputable evidence that pesticides will always cause these negative outcomes, we have to ask ourselves if we really want to risk it. So that was a lot of bad news there, but we're going to get a little bit more optimistic now and talk just a little bit about what we as Iowans, as neighbors, as parents, and as people who care about the environment, what we can do, and then I'll hand it back off to Bree to tie it back to the parent program. So as neighbors, as people who own homes, who have children, who care about the environment, here are just some really quick tips and tricks that you can use in your homes and in your lawns. When you're looking for lawn care products, whether you still want to use some sort of herbicide and insecticide, or you're looking at compost, you're looking at fertilizer, looking for the OMRI stamp of approval, which is an independent organization, the Organic Materials Review Institute. They go through and figure out what lawn care products are organic. So looking for that stamp can be helpful. A lot of us are guilty of over-fertilizing or not fertilizing correctly. So making sure that we are only fertilizing when a soil test shows that it's necessary, only fertilizing at most once per year. And then also making sure that we are spreading it evenly and sweeping up any excess to prevent it from going into our waterways. Using mulch and compost in our lawns to make our soil healthy, to make sure that we have really healthy soil, to have really healthy grass, decreases the need for herbicides in our lawns. Making sure that we're watering correctly can also decrease the need for pesticides in our lawns. Mowing correctly can also decrease the need for it. Mowing only as needed, at least 3 inches high, to shade out any weeds, because if the weeds can't reach the sunlight because the grass is tall enough, the weeds can't grow. Then also making sure that we're mowing with really, really sharp blades, to get a clean cut and avoid pulling at the grass, which can weaken the root system. We also have some websites that we partner with. Beyond Pesticides is a really great resource where you go in and you click on the problem that you're seeing, whether that is dandelions or deer or ground ivy. You go in, click on that. They will give you the reasons why it's happening to you, the reasons why it can be a concern to us, and then how to take care of them naturally without any use of chemical pesticides, which is awesome. So that's Beyond Pesticides, that's their website. And then also the Purdue Extension Office is also a really great resource to use. They kind of do the same thing as Beyond Pesticides, where you go in, you click on the specific problem that you're facing. So this example is cucumber beetles. They'll tell you what it affects, why it's dangerous, why it's being caused to happen in your garden, and how you can take care of it without pesticides. And so maybe you're at the point where you're like, okay, I won't use any herbicides, but I still have ants and flies and mosquitoes, and I just really don't want them anywhere near my home. I get it. I really do not like any creepy crawlies whatsoever, even though I recognize the important effects that pollinators have. So here's some natural ways to maybe reduce the amount of flies or mosquitoes or ants that you're seeing. For flies, lavender essential oil is great. I can actually attest to this personally. My fiance and I live in a 150-year-old farmhouse with lots of nooks and crannies. We get tons of flies in the summer. So we sprayed lavender essential oil on our door frames and on our windowsills. And this summer, we don't have nearly as many flies as last summer. In fact, I can only maybe count like 10 flies that I've seen since the beginning of summer. So that's been really awesome for us. Mosquitoes outside, lemongrass plants, they really don't like the smell of that. They just overloads their system. Same thing with the lavender oil. These things really don't harm these animals. They just smell way too strongly and it kind of gives them a migraine. And they just really don't want to be anywhere near those things that smell that strongly. So they just avoid it. And then also ants. Usually are following their little ant buddies by the scent trail that they leave. So spraying something that smells stronger than the ant trails, like vinegar or cinnamon oil, covers up those ant trails and they can't find out where to go because they can't smell where the other ants have gone. And then just another list of homemade remedies that you can use. Basil plants, lavender plants, bay leaves, cinnamon. I've seen a lot of people sprinkling cinnamon in their outdoor trash cans to keep flies and mosquitoes away, which is awesome. Vinegar, peppermint plants and oils, and catnip plants. But just a quick disclaimer, if you have some catnip plants, you might get some furry friends. So just be aware of that. Also something to be aware of, if you do have cats or dogs inside of your house, not all of these are going to be safe for them. So make sure that you're double checking what essential oils you are using if you have pets inside. We also have some homemade remedies at Good Neighbor Iowa that you can find on our website for your driveways and your sidewalks that are basically just a mix of lemon juice, vinegar, dish soap, and salt that can be used to kill some weeds. We recommend those for spot treatment, and those are going to take more than one application because they are not as potent as the chemicals, but they are a great alternative to use. So you can find those on Good Neighbor Iowa's website. And then the last thing I want to leave you with is just having good, healthy communication with our neighbors. That's the best way to spread awareness about this topic because most people just don't know the side effects of pesticides or how dangerous they can be. I mean, before I started working here, I knew that pesticides weren't necessarily great, but I had no idea all of the long-term side effects that they can have. So just talking with each other, if you've decided not to spray and your neighbors do, just have a good, healthy communication. Not coming from a place of judgment, coming from a place of education can really go a lot farther than you think. Some other resources to utilize, Midwest Grows Green. Like I said, they are our partner. We love working with them. Beyond Pesticides, that's where you can find all of those natural remedies for some pests that you have. Iowa State University Extension and then also Purdue University Extension are also great resources. And other than that, if you have any questions, I can try to answer them at the end when we open up for questions. But if there's anything that might take a little bit more in depth, you can shoot us an email and we'll be happy to reach out to you and answer your questions. Or just check out our website at goodneighboriowa.org and just check out all the fun things that we've got over there. So I want to thank you for listening to my presentation, and I will hand it back over to Bree.
Oh, hello. All right, sorry about that. I was pulling up links and things for everyone. Okay, so now what we're going to do is once we have all of that information, we're tying back the more urban to the rural use of pesticides and just general as well. So first, you might be wondering why I am able to talk about this. So yeah, I'm the Northeast Iowa Field Coordinator again, but I did spend 2 years as a Green Iowa AmeriCorps member at the Tallgrass Prairie Center. I actually worked under Christine Nemec, who is the director for the Iowa Roadside Vegetation Management Program for the entire state. And in my time there, one of the certifications that I got was in pesticide application, specifically category 6. That means that so I had the core test, which is just basic information, knowing how to read a label, knowing, proper safety, PPE, that kind of thing. Did you know that you're not really supposed to spray even Roundup without wearing some form of PPE? They recommend gloves, closed-toed shoes, long pants, long sleeves, a mask, but I've personally have never seen anyone using a herbicide in their yard or driveway. Usually they're in flip-flops, which made me scared after I learned about all of the things that can get tracked. But this is a certification that anyone can receive. There are testing materials available online. I do have the link here. And if you have any questions or are interested, just let me know and I can get you in with those resources. So tying this back to more rural and larger agricultural type things, as well as our roadsides, Iowa Roadside Management, formerly Iowa Roadside Vegetation Management, or sorry, Integrated Roadside Vegetation Management, integrated, yes. So it is a practice that integrates the use of native and other select types of vegetation with appropriate management techniques to produce cost-effective, environmentally sound management alternatives for roadsides. So Iowa, a majority of our public land is in our roadsides. We call it the right-of-way or the row. That's usually the 5 to 10 feet on either side of the road. So that includes our highways, city streets, that kind of thing. So, come on now, there we go. So what does that really mean? Integrated roadside vegetation management, it's really jargony. So it's essentially using a combination of mechanical, vegetative, and chemical practices to have safer and healthier habitat for insects, animals, and people. So rather than just blanket spraying using a ton of chemicals, spending the money and the time on that, we look at the space, we determine what the needs are, and try to avoid using chemicals as much as possible. So getting into those different methods, on the right there, you can see other former AmeriCorps members. There's Andrew Rust. He was also a former field coordinator with us. We worked together at the TPC. This is actually the TPC grounds. So chemical management, what is recommended, do not overuse herbicides and know your herbicides. So you know you're catering what you're using to what you need, so you reduce the amount that you need, but you also do more direct application. So what they're using there, a woman quite a few years ago realized that, I really apologize, I do not remember her name, but she found out that if you used like a bingo dauber and fill it with herbicide and a dye, you can do spot application. Many counties use a spray bottle, and then the TPC uses these daubers, which are just longer PVC pipes with a stopper at the end and then a rolled up cotton. So you open the stopper, it releases the herbicide into the cotton, and then you close the stopper, and then you just dab the stem. And we dye it so we know exactly where we have treated. So this was from a cut and treat activity here where we went through, someone had the the loppers, and then someone would follow behind and dab the herbicide on. This was to avoid damaging any of the nearby species. So this was all pulled from the Integrated Roadside Vegetation Management Technical Manual, ways to reduce herbicide use. So the biggest thing with chemical management is how can we avoid it and how can we use as little as possible where necessary. So of course you need to know what you're actually trying to treat for and what kind of threats it has towards native vegetation. If it's an aggressive species, then maybe, yeah, you want to use herbicide, especially if other methods are ineffective. But maybe if that particular weed can just be shaded out by the introduction of another species, maybe that's a better option. Know the appropriate application technology. So you'll see a few pictures later on of hydro seeders, but it used to be a very like blanket spraying operation, and it still is in many states, but know the best way to apply your herbicide. And then, of course, with IRVM, we do a lot of roadside plans and things like that. So we want to make sure that when counties and cities are hiring roadside managers, that they have conservation-minded operators, especially on those spray crews. Oops. Oh my goodness. Okay. And echoing what Cameron said, work with adjacent landowners, be a good neighbor, because if you can work together to reduce that, that is even better. And then of course, resist that outside pressure to do more spraying. We all know that it's so easy to get so frustrated with how many weeds we end up with that it's like, oh, I'm just gonna spray it all. Be patient. Sometimes these alternative methods, they take a little bit of time to see effects, but the effects that you see will have a greater, more positive impact in the long run. So the other one is mechanical management. So that is exactly what it sounds like. Hand pulling, it also includes smothering. So use of cardboard or plywood just to cover the target species. Mowing can reduce it, just like Cameron said. If you keep your lawns at a certain height, it can out-compete those species. Same thing goes if you have native vegetation, making sure that you keep those species nice and healthy. You mow down the weeds before they can get too tall. It opens up the space for native plants to come through, and then once they get big and strong, they can outcompete those weeds. And then burning, but I added a little asterisk to burning because that is included in cultural methods as well. Burning has been suppressed for a very long time, just due to Western culture. So we're reintroducing it back to prairies, roadsides. So if you drive in kind of the county roadsides, you might see some charred roadsides. That's because that county or maybe even the farmer is using burning as a method to reduce that weed. Biological management. It's easy. Plant native species. Look. All right, I lied. It's not just plants, it's animals and insects as well. So biological management is something that we've been using for quite a long time. I will say plants in Iowa at least tend to be a more successful approach. Animals, so that is a photo from a company called Goats on the Go. Essentially, you rent out their goats for a certain period of time, they fence them off, and they come through and they mow down everything you got. That's a pretty common practice. I drove past, I think I was up in Alameda, and a farmer had tied in all of his different ditches ponies to eat the vegetation in those ditches. And insects, which in my opinion is one of the least effective methods, and it has introduced some pretty nasty invasives and aggressive species that end up damaging things. But in certain cases, sometimes the introduction of, say, a native insect or a less aggressive insect that has more of a focus on the weeds that you need, they can be introduced to reduce their presence. And then we get into that cultural management. Like I said, burning, but also crop rotation. That's more of a cultural practice, knowing that intensive farming on the same area over and over and over again with the same plant, it really drains the soil. So knowing that we need to alternate what is planted there or even doing species together is really important. Education, of course, sharing that information of what things can be done and making it more of a culture of, okay, we need to protect our soil health, we need to protect against erosion, all of those things, making sure that that is available and talked about. So why does this matter? Especially when we're talking about roadsides out in the middle of nowhere. We're not talking about our lawn. And I really don't mean that rhetorically. Put your thoughts in the chat question box. I'm looking. All right, guys, keep on throwing them in there. So why does lowered or integrated pesticide application or just methods, why is that important? Why does it matter? Come on. So again, this is coming from that management technical manual. So we're going to start at the top, the goals. The goals of the program overall. We want to maintain a safe and effective road system. So safety is at the highest priority. We want to make sure that these roads are safe to use for drivers, farmers, commuters, whatever. Provide responsible and sustainable vegetation management. We want to make sure that what we're doing isn't just for what's easy now. It might be something that has more cost in the beginning, but over time it reduces those things. But we want to make sure that we're being responsible and sustainable. And we want to make the most of Iowa's 847,000 acres of roadside resources. We have all of this public land that is, mostly turf grass. We want to take advantage of that. Come on now. And then we want to, so this is more along the lines of what IRVM also has funding for. So create a full-time roadside manager position. This is more at the county level. Many counties have roadside managers. Essentially, they complete a roadside plan. They just detail what they do now in terms of management and then what they plan to do with elements of education and incorporating other methods. And through that, they open themselves up to large grant opportunities, program opportunities, education resources, that whole thing. So if you are in a county and you check out the IRVM page and you see that they don't have a roadside manager, you can talk to your county conservation board and start working that out. This is also something that is extended to cities, and there are different applications for cities over and under 10,000. And if you have any questions about that, reach out to me and I can get you in contact with your region's field coordinator. So of course, hire a conservation-minded individual as a roadside manager, making sure that they they understand why we want to use these different methods instead of this is what's easiest, let's go with that. And then of course, giving that roadside manager the power to succeed. Y'all know how hard that is right now. All right, so why natives? Native plants, so we're gonna go pretty quick through these. Native plants that we put in our roadsides, you can definitely tell which counties have roadside managers and a roadside program. You can see the natives, especially now, popping up. You can see the color, the difference in the vegetation. It's not all mowed. So native plants are durable and the perennials. So once you have it established, it takes less to keep those areas well vegetated. Diverse native plantings also help maintain that moisture quality that soil quality and moisture. And then they also provide great erosion control because the roots reach so deeply. It also reduces that stormwater runoff and again, reducing that erosion, that runoff. It keeps at least some of that, the chemicals that are sprayed on our fields out of our waterways. And then the large above ground foliage, when it dies, the below ground roots stay alive, but that foliage on top puts more organic matter and carbon back into the soil where we need it. So then that it also helps rehabilitate our soil quality. And then of course they're very resilient. They survive our Iowa winters, our droughts, high salt concentrations. They also they outcompete weeds. And then they also, that's just all outcompeting weeds. Yeah. Oh, and then there is some evidence. We don't have an actual really good solid study, just mostly observations that show that a wide swath of prairie grass in the right-of-way can help trap snow as a natural snow fence. And so it helps reduce some of that blowing if we don't mow down or clean up the stalks at the end of the summer. So it can help keep the roads a bit safer. Native roadsides, if we have those plantings, it also acts as a stopping point midway with food cover for birds, animals, insects, imagine the journey that our monarchs take all the way to get up to Iowa, and they need to take a rest, but all we have is turf grass on our roadsides. Having even just a bit of native plants on that roadside can help support that population. And of course, native roadside plantings restore a piece of Iowa's natural heritage, the tallgrass prairie. That was taken directly, most of these were taken directly from the technical manual. I wanted to underline that one because it's not just plants. Iowa is the most altered state in the country, and prairie is as, if not more, endangered of an ecosystem than the rainforest, but it often gets ignored. So it's really important for us as Iowans, Midwesterners, to really support getting our prairie back on the landscape. All right, so that's about the end of my talk. I did want to highlight this. So I took a lot of this information from the IRVM IRVM technical manual, which is available in full for free at the Tallgrass Prairie Center's website. And I really like that they included the objective of the manual, so that's why I included it here. It is to provide the basic technical support for new and existing Iowa County roadside programs. It is also intended to provide guidance to policymakers and engineers interested in adopting or expanding integrated vegetation management in county right-of-way. It's important that we have these resources and we use them and support them and share them. Come on. So I would like to thank, of course, LRTF and the DOT for helping us with this and supporting the Stewards of the Beautiful Land project. And now we will open up to questions, which I saw one.
There's a couple, Bree.
Oh, there are? Okay. What we got?
Yes. So, do you want me to go through them or do you want to take them?
I'm having a hard time seeing them, so maybe.
Okay, I will. Well, the first one came during Cameron's presentation, and so I'm going to go with that one first, and then we'll work through them. Okay. So it was Cameron, if you're still on, can you say more about why watering correctly once a week with 1 inch is important?
Yeah, so usually what we recommend for watering is watering really early in the morning or really late in the evening. And the reason for this is because it prevents evaporation, and then it also prevents any fungus or mold from growing from the water. And then also watering all at once rather than sporadically throughout the week can strengthen the root system of our grass, which can make them stronger and more resistant to weed growth, because it makes the roots grow deeper rather than giving it a little bit every single day. That alerts the grass that the roots don't need to grow very deep, but if you do it sporadically, it'll help the roots grow deeper. That will also protect against if there's a drought or you're unable to water. It'll help your grass stay green later or longer.
Perfect. Okay, I think this one may be one that you want to take too. And I just lost it, imagine that. Here we go. So how do you work with, this is for you, Cameron, it could be for anybody, I guess, too. It's a tough one. How do you work with older people or close-minded people who consider a manicured lawn part of their identity as old-time Iowans or people who don't want to change? That's the attitude of the HOA management of my condo association. So there you go. There's a tough one.
It is. I mean, the best thing that we can do is come at them with education and resources. And it really is such a deep-rooted stigma and cultural attitude about having a perfectly manicured lawn that is so hard to break. So especially with HOAs, we have a lot of people come up to us at our tabling events that are like, you know, I would love to like let my lawn go wild, but I get fined by my HOA if I have any dandelions. And it is just such an insane system. But the only things that we can do is to come at them with education, have an open mind, because we want them to have an open mind as well. There's also some places for compromise where, you know, raised beds with wildflower plants on top of the turf grass can be an option. But at the end of the day, some people just aren't going to change their minds, and that's something that we can keep working towards. But at the end of the day, some people just are dead set in that way.
Yeah, I like your practices to encourage the grass to be more vigorous, and so maybe if they even implement some of those practices, it might help them a bit, at least reduce some herbicide input. I got another one. I think this one might be Bree. We'll see. I don't know. I live in Benton County. What's the best way to get my ditch changed to native? And is this something I can do to the ditches across the road?
Okay, that's actually a really good question. So this also comes in with neighbors. So I would say who is typically responsible for the ditch across the road. I would also check if you have a roadside manager, and also just getting out there early and seeding. You can, if the ditch is small enough, you can just do hand spreading, and then it's just making sure that you mow the ditch and make it a good space for those plants to come up. Like I said, the first couple of years, you have to really be in there trying to encourage the natives, push back those like the brome and the weeds. But you can also, if you want to go a little more intensive, hydro seeding, drilling. It really just depends on how really in there you want to make it. And
I'm sorry, Bree. Keep talking. I'm sorry.
oh no, it's okay. I was just, in terms of getting a hold of native seed, if your county has a roadside manager, they do have access every year to Iowa Source native seed, and maybe you can work with them to help get a hold of that. But otherwise, there are native seed companies and distributors that can help you get that seed mix.
Is this something they need to talk to their county engineer's office about if they're the people managing the roadside?
Oh, for sure. Definitely reach out to the county engineer's office as well. You want to make sure that there's a lot of communication, and I would say that definitely goes in hand with being a good neighbor and making sure that you have that open communication.
Okay, great. Here's a comment. I don't know that there's an answer here. I'm just going to read it. I'm frustrated by the fact that urban lawn care chemical applicators seem to be protected by state law. I am disappointed that many don't put enough signs warning that the lawns have been treated. So yeah, it's a concern. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know what the state law is for chemical applicators on private lawns. If anybody does know what that is.
There's really not much. It was a little bit that I had learned about, but in terms of that, it's just they put warnings on the label, and that's about it.
Great. Okay, so can you recommend methods for killing woody invasives like honeysuckle or mulberry?
Ooh, for that, if you want to avoid herbicide altogether, I would say just keep cutting it low, keep depriving it, smother it. And then honestly, yeah, once you remove the plant, put something else there, because what ends up happening a lot of times, if you do even cut and treat, you come through, you remove that, and it's like, well, now you have all this open space. And if you missed anything in the seed bank, if you missed any sprouts, now it has all this awesome space and resources to grow back twice as quickly. So I would say, use those multiple methods.
Okay. We're getting some good questions here. I'm going to keep reading them. Where can I find good examples of attractive urban residential native plantings, that have low maintenance and have been around for at least 5 years? I know for a long time, I know of more long-term failures than successes.
Did we say specifically?
You could probably say specifically, yeah.
Well, are we looking specifically for like small plantings or big plantings?
This urban residential native plantings. So I don't know exactly.
Urban resident, those are pretty tough to find. I mostly know about ones here in the Cedar Falls, Waterloo area. It is tough. I know Cedar Falls has these really good bioswales that they implemented along Waterloo Road. And so they have these little pockets of about 3 foot by 3 foot by the sidewalk, by the drains where they have natives. And every year they pop up really, really well. And then there's also a native bioswale out off of University Avenue in front of the furniture store, which is a bit more, it's more like one of those medians that you see when you go to like a mall parking area that's full of natives that does a really good job of mitigating some of the runoff that they have. And then a lot of times it's in parks that you'll find them, or you'll have people who just plant swaths of prairie in their backyard. A more popular thing at the moment is landscaping with natives. So doing more curated landscaping, but just replacing this plants with the annual plants with the perennials has been pretty popular. But also if you're ever out at Hartman Nature Reserve, they have examples of both just seeded prairie space in a small area and then more of a cultivated landscaping space.
Thank you.
Of course. Oh,
Okay.
and I do want to also say Kathy Irvin is on the call. Sorry to shout you out, Kathy, but out in by Dysart, she has a massive restored prairie that she's been working with the TPC on, and that is open to the public as well, and it is gorgeous. So I highly recommend visiting that as well.
Excellent. Are there some resources you would say that if people were looking for a place to go that they might tap into? Like our county conservation boards typically know that kind of stuff, or other things, do you know?
For urban plantings, I'm not sure. It doesn't hurt to reach out to them. Whenever people are looking for more of like a prairie to go see, I recommend going to Iowa Prairie Network, but they have more of a list of remnant and restored prairies that aren't really in the urban setting. It's kind of,
Okay.
if you know, you know.
All right. I'm going to keep reading questions until you guys stop telling me to ask them. Do our water treatment facilities take any measures to remove pesticides from our polluted drinking water? Does anybody know an answer to that one? Obviously,
So,
everybody's familiar with Des Moines taking nitrate out of that water, but
yeah, it really, I was looking that up. It really depends on the state and the plant. Because chlorination, certain methods of removing the pesticides, it works for certain chemicals and not for others. So where it might take out things like the nitrates, it might not take things out like the neonics, that kind of thing. So it's definitely worth looking at what your local treatment plant does.
okay. And they should have that record, right?
They should.
Okay. All right. Next one. What native plants will crowd out smooth brome? I want to hear this one, Bree.
Ooh. So the funny thing is everybody jumps immediately to forbs because we really want pretty flowers, which, you know, in a good healthy planting, you should probably do forbs first, because if you start with grasses, native grasses can tend to be pretty aggressive. But if you're okay with that, I definitely say put in that big blue stem, put the little blue stem, get some sedges in there, because they get nice and tall and they're nice and thick enough that they can really get that brome out.
Some of that is management timing too, right?
Oh yeah, making sure that you mow at the right time, making sure that you burn, and you really help support the natives, because that will really suppress the brome.
Okay, cool. All right. I'm gonna read this one. I don't know. I'm kind of pulls away. Sorry, I can't get it all on the same page.
That's
I
okay.
have a native garden and I have a few weeds. Wait a minute. I have had the garden for 7 to 8 years. I do selectively pull weeds by hand, like daisy fleabane and other plants that reseed heavily. Do you have any advice for learning more about how to identify seedlings?
We have a book.
Uh-huh.
We have
Nice.
a native seedling booklet that is in partnership with LRTF. It is available in PDF form for free online. You can also get physical copies either from us, or usually your county conservation office has them. But if you would like a copy, reach out to us and we will figure out how to get that to you.
Perfect. Okay. So comment, identifying seedlings is so helpful in selectively pulling plants that can be invasive. So it kind of builds on the last one. For urban prairies, look at Dubuque County Conservation Extension mowing to moving. Yeah, let me read it again. For urban prairies, look at Dubuque County Conservation / Extension mowing to monarchs program. So there's probably some there in Dubuque County, it sounds like. Awesome. Thanks, Doug. Let's see. And I love how our native garden, okay, so this is a continuation. Sorry, Lori, I chopped up your message. Love how my native garden with so-called messiness supports the native bees, pollinators, and creates a habitat for our plant friends. There you go. Beautiful. And then I would like a copy. I'm just kind of going through everything here. You'll get, you actually, can we, the hard copies for that book, we carry with us to events typically. Yeah, as Bree put in there, please shoot an email and we'll see about getting you that, okay?
Let me see if I can find that link to the PDF as well.
And if you're not familiar with, yeah, nice job. If you're not familiar with the, there's a variety of other books too, trees, common trees of Iowa, and then pollinators and wetland plants. Is there another one, Bree? Why am I not remembering? I think that's it.
Trees and shrubs, wetlands and marshes, pollinators, seedlings. Yeah, I think that about covers it.
Yeah.
Oh,
so there's
yeah, Cameron had to take off, but yeah.
Okay, thanks, Cameron. I am going to stop reading questions. If you have more, I'll let Bree, I'll let you wrap up here. I'm sorry, I'll stop talking.
Oh, whoops. Let me stop sharing here. All right. So I do want to say thank you all so much. This webinar was recorded and it will be posted shortly. I highly encourage you all to register for upcoming ones. We've got some really interesting stuff going on, and also attend one of our field days if you are free and available. If you have any other questions after this, or like you're interested in the seed guide or any of our books, reach out to us and let us know. If you're interested in learning more about roadside plans and things like that, just also reach out to us. We'll get you a hold of your region's field coordinator and get you guys started. All right. You all have a great one, and thanks for coming.